Want to thank everybody for coming tonight to this webinar, and want to thank especially a couple people for being here. Katie Burkus, we're excited that she could come tonight and lead this webinar.
Thank you so much for having me.
And wanted to thank her for being here. We also want to thank Pastor John for being here as well. Katie is a licensed clinical social worker. She's the founder of My Place for Peace in Flemington, New Jersey. She's also a part-time lecturer at Rutgers University. We're very fortunate to have her here tonight. I think it's interesting because this is about the second or third version of this we tried as a youth leadership team. We originally envisioned this to be talking about stress. When we contacted Katie about leading the seminar live, and then COVID hit, and we really felt like it was important for us to pivot and start thinking about other things. So we're very thankful for Katie to be here tonight. As far as tonight, what the format is going to be, in a second, we're going to open in prayer. Katie will share her presentation. We'll end with a few questions. You'll be able to ask questions over the chat function. And we'll also have a time of question and answer as well with Katie. And then we plan to end around 8 p.m. So that is the plan for tonight. With that, I'm going to open us in prayer. Let us pray. Eternal God, our Creator, you set us to live in families. We commend families to your care, all the homes where people live. Keep them, we pray, O God, free from bitterness and from pride and self. God, we ask you to fill them with faith, virtue, and knowledge, moderation, and patience. Knit together those who are married. Let children and parents live in full respect for one another. And God, we ask that you light the fire of kindness among all of us. Amen. Well, and Katie?
I'm taking over now.
You feel free to take it away here.
Okay, thank you so much for leading us in prayer. That was beautiful and a really great way for us to start tonight. So I'm going to share my screen with everyone here. And I'm going to do one more click so that we can get to the full picture. Wonderful. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see what I'm seeing. Josh, can you see what I'm seeing? Okay, great.
It's wonderful.
Great, okay. All right, it is an honor to be with you tonight virtually. I wish I could see your incredible faces because that is something that I certainly soak up in terms of connection. One of the things from being a therapist and doing telehealth right now, trying to understand why at the end of the day I was feeling even more tired than normal. And one of the things that I realized and was hearing through some of the research is that when we do this Zoom connection, right, which is wonderful that we have this technology, it requires so much more of our energy, right? You're reading my body language. I am unable to read your body language. So there's like this kind of, our bodies are working harder to understand each other. So, you know, as we're going through this presentation and I'm gonna, you know, share a tremendous amount of information, you know, just keep breathing, right? Stretch a little bit, drink some water, right? Because your body is working hard even as we're talking virtually. All right. So tonight, we're going to talk about a few things. What is pandemic parenting? You know, I believe that there's going to be books written about us right now about how we're all coping, what we did, some of the things that worked, some of the things that didn't. There's going to be research studies galore. But right now we're working with the framework that we have with what's in front of us, and I'm going to share that tonight. We're going to explore our physiology, and I'm bringing that up because it's important for us to understand how our body works and what's going on for our children, and what we can do about that in relation to being in a pandemic. And then exploring the needs of our children based on age. I'm recognizing that we're all coming to parenting and discussing this in different ways as we're talking. My children, I have a senior in high school and one in college. You guys might have toddlers and or 9-year-olds and struggling with math. I'm so sorry for all of you who are teaching math. If that's not your thing right now, I think I would be freaking out. So we're going to be talking about the needs of our children. And then I'm a big resource person, so I'm going to share a bunch of resources with you. So we're starting off with a quote by one of my heroes, Fred Rogers, who I think was just such an amazing man and brought so much to families and to children. And being able to say that tonight we're going to listen with our ears and our hearts and be assured that our questions are just as important as the answers. So some of the things that we're talking about tonight, we don't have the answers for yet. And that's going to be some of the struggle as we're kind of sorting through this information. Okay, so parenting in a pandemic. So pre-COVID, there were many roles of parenting, right? So we're caregivers extraordinaire. We do the grocery shopping, so we're chefs. We're driving everybody, so we're chauffeurs. We're attending to illnesses, so we're nurses and doctors. We are educators. We are so many different functions, right? Which takes a lot out of us in our normal everyday life, is being present in our parenting. Especially when we're being pulled in so many different directions, managing our home, right? Making sure that our house is clean. We're managing work, whether that's our volunteer work outside of the home or our jobs outside of the home, and certainly our extended family needs, whatever they may be. Pre-COVID, we also showed up to a pandemic with situations already going on for us. So we had relationship struggles. Maybe we had some mental health issues already for ourselves, some job stress. Maybe we were already experiencing a recent loss. And then, pre-COVID, we were pretty good at maybe, hopefully, making sure we're wearing clean underwear, right? Because we were doing that self-care, we were showering, we were getting our hair done, we were doing all the things to be able to help us feel like our normal, healthy selves. Okay, now we add COVID. So all of those things, plus we're talking about our nervous system. And our nervous system has been activated in so many ways. We're going to talk about that in terms of the physiology in a little bit, but the fears that we've been experiencing that have been very real, the anxiety about what will happen, the uncertainty, the challenges. Some of you may be experiencing grief and loss while this is going on. And the world of grief and loss and the systems of care that we used to have in place to care for those who were grieving have changed right now. And so that is another anxiety producing situation. Everything right now is harder. I don't know about how you guys feel about grocery shopping, and if we were live, I would be able to ask you, but when I go grocery shopping, I have to stand in a line 6 feet apart. We're wearing masks. One of the things that I realized about myself is that I would be in the grocery store and now I have a mask on, right? And I used to smile at everybody. And now, so I feel myself smiling under a mask because I can feel the fabric on me, but people aren't seeing that I'm trying to connect with them. So connection in the grocery store is harder. Accessing the things that we're trying to get. We had the run on toilet paper, then chicken, and then there was hair dye, and then there's all kinds of things that everything feels harder in terms of accessing the normal things that we used to have. Things look different now, and that registers on our bodies. You're now responsible for the education of your children, as well as the jobs that you were doing prior to this, and balancing all of that. And if I was in charge of someone's math assignments right now, that would put me in a tailspin. So that's been a lot. We don't have the supports of other people that we used to count on, other caregivers, grandparents, neighbors, people that would come into our home and support us in various ways, or places we would go, like our church family, for example, or our support groups. We don't have access to those things that we used to have in the ways that we're used to them. And self-care under all of these things looks like a fairy tale, right? We're not sure if we're wearing clean underwear anymore. We don't know what day it is. We're hoping that we're showering. We're making sure that the kids, that we're like wiping the peanut butter and jelly off the side of their face. And we're just trying to manage this new normal, which has been very, very challenging for all of us. Okay. So understanding our physiology, and I teach this to my clients, I teach it to my students, and I think it's a really important aspect to understand how our body works, because I feel like it's very empowering when we understand how our body works. So we have our autonomic nervous system. It has two parts. Only one can be dominant at a time. So we have our sympathetic part and we have our parasympathetic part. Only one can be dominant. So we're feeling all of our feelings, or we're in a stress response, okay? Parasympathetic is feeling our feelings. Sympathetic is our stress response. Our stress response is that primitive part of our brain. We've had it since we're cavemen and women, and it was designed to protect us. It's our survival instinct. You've heard this before, our fight, flight, or freeze aspect of our brain. The thing about our brain is that since it's the primitive part of our brain, it doesn't understand the difference between a bear literally charging at us, or that we thought of a bear possibly charging at us, right? So it doesn't know the difference because it manages the threat, right? It's always being able to scan the environment. So we're going to talk about how to manage it, because when we're in our stress response, it's a very significant place. The way it was designed for short term. There is a bear charging at me. I am going to run, or I'm going to fight this thing. And somehow or other, there's an outcome that comes from that. It wasn't designed to stay in our stress response for a long period of time, because our stress response was designed to be in emergency systems only. So that means that it increases heart rate, increases respiration, and turns off other systems that are not needed under an emergency systems only. So for example, that piece of toast that you had, if you're in a stress response, the body's going to go, we're not going to digest that right now because we don't need to do that. We need to run or to fight. And so that's where we're going to focus our energy. It doesn't have problem solving skills online at that point when we're in a stress response. It doesn't have good memory because it's an emergency systems only, and only what the body needs to survive. So we're going to talk about a little bit later, how do we pull out of our sympathetic nervous system, because it's not a good healthy profile for us to be in that place. It also affects our immune system. Okay, but being able to understand how that works is important. The next part, when we talk about mirror neurons is like, I think, one of the coolest things ever. So for example, if you're watching a scary movie, right? And you see, the very scary thing coming and the fabulous music, right? Let's use Jaws, right? Everybody can picture that song, right? The famous Jaws song. And you can see the fin of the shark, and you start to react. Your mirror neurons can imagine what that's like, and will start to elicit the feeling of fear. And so we try on that feeling in mirror neurons, and that's what we do. And so that is related to our empathy center when we're trying on someone else's feelings. So for example, if I was to give you a really, really positive, caring smile, check to see if your cheeks changed. Did you smile back? That was your brain going, oh, I got you. She's smiling. I'm going to see how that feels and try it on and smile, right? So our mirror neurons are really great. They give us a tremendous amount of information, and it's how we learn how we're feeling, right? Because we're trying on this emotion and we're testing it. We know it's not real at that moment, but it's this way that we have empathy for each other. Our vagus nerve, another really cool aspect of our body. comes from the Latin wandering. So this wandering nerve starts in the brain and travels down. I call it the I-95 of the body, right? It's like this super highway of information about what's going on and is very responsive. It's also this caretaking and connection place, because I'll explain to you how your vagus nerve fires. So when we see something really powerful, really moving, and something that it could be either something really sad or something really beautiful, our vagus nerve fires and lets us know that we're connected to that moment. And you'll know when your vagus nerve fires because it's this feeling where you tear up ever so slightly, but you don't cry. You get that tightness in your throat, like just this little clenching, and your chest feels tight. They used to have another term for it called elation. And it was this experience that we feel, and we've seen it in other things, like when you see an act of kindness or you see someone being really good. I can tell you, my vagus nerve fires all the time when I see some sort of video where somebody is saving dogs, right? Like that's a big one for me, in terms of, like, you know, you see this dog really suffering and these people rescue and take care of this dog and bring it to the vet, and you see this happy outcome. My vagus nerve fires because I feel very moved by the acts of goodness by other human beings. As do you. We all have this function, and be on the watch for it. I imagine our vagus nerve is firing a lot more now. We're seeing acts of goodness and kindness. We're also seeing acts of fear or sadness. And so it's responding. And this is another way that we know that we are wired to be together as human beings. We're wired for connection. And that's how our body does it. And it shows us with mirror neurons, as well as the vagus nerve firing. Okay, so why is this important to parenting, right? This little snapshot on physiology, which we could spend weeks, days, and years on, by the way, in just one cute little slide here. But why is this important to parenting? For two reasons. One, knowing yourself, right? Knowing when your stress response has been activated, right? Because when we're in a stress response, if you remember, higher level thinking goes offline. Communication skills, offline. Digestion, offline. So being able to be aware of where we are in our own nervous system is empowering. It helps us regulate ourselves. And it also helps us be better caregivers to those we love and serve. So being able to know yourself. The other part is to be able to recognize when it's happening for your children, right? To be able to see when they are activated. And we get to say, oh, you know, Katie's activated right now. It's not that she's being a brat, right? She's activated, and what can I do to be able to support her? It seems like she's anxious, or she's a mess, right? We can think of any time that any one of us as human beings has had the classic meltdown, and we've certainly seen it in our children. So being able to be aware of when it's happening, when our nervous system is activated for ourselves, as well as for our children. Okay, next one. What is normal right now? I think we're going to keep defining this for the next 10 years about what normal was, right? But some of the things that I can tell you from the research that I've done, that it's completely normal to feel out of control, because the world is that way right now, right? When we're seeing people fight over toilet paper, right? That is not in our wheelhouse of normal at the moment. And it's disorienting, right? It's normal to feel weepy and sad. I leave the grocery store and I feel like crying. And I think I have on occasion. I feel sad of the changes that we're experiencing in our communities. I feel sad that we're not together with our families for birthdays and major events. There's a grief process that's happening. When we think about grief, and when I work with clients, grief is not a pathology. So there's no diagnosis for grief. right? Grief is something that normally occurs to us as human beings. And we have to be able to learn how to manage it, right? Because if we don't manage it, grief tends to manage us. So being able to find ways to be able to manage it, but weepy and sad is normal now. Anxious. So if you think about our nervous system, primitive part of our brain is constantly scanning the environment for something wrong. And right now, there's a lot of things that are wrong, right? So hopefully within our homes, when we scan the environment, that our homes feel safe, we feel protected, we feel okay. But when we go out, such as like when I go to the grocery store, I scan the environment and everything looks different. I see my neighbors in masks. We're not talking with each other. We're not hugging as we used to. We're not sharing as much because people are afraid, right? We're overwhelmed by the amount of tasks and the newness that we're doing. You know, think of how much you've had to digest in the past 6 weeks of newness of doing, whether that be teaching math or science or whatever it is that's not in your level of comfort. But really rising to the occasion and pushing ourselves to be all that and a bag of chips for our jobs, for our kids, for our spouses, for our extended family. And that's a lot. Angry at the losses experiencing, which are a lot. Loss of job, loss of life, of our fellow humans or our family members, right? And how this is happening. Feeling tired and weary. I think in the beginning, when we were first in quarantine, everybody was energized and trying to figure it out and anxious and overwhelmed. And now I'm hearing from clients and families this sense of weariness, of just feeling just depleted from having to do this in the way that we've been doing it. Having frequent dreams. I hear this constantly, and I just read a New York Times article about it. We're trying to process so much in our brain that the brain's like, yeah, we can't do all that during the day. So it's saving some at night. So those are normal, those are okay. It's just our brain trying to sort stuff. Okay. Should we be concerned about PTSD, anxiety, and depression now? Yes, I think we should have it on our radar. Do we need to have it be the focus of everything that we're doing? No. So if we talk about what PTSD is in the brain, when we think of our nervous system, parasympathetic, feeling all of our feelings, sympathetic, stress response, right? If in my stress response, I have the ability to run away or to fight the situation, then I typically do not develop PTSD. PTSD develops when we're unable to defend ourselves, to help ourselves, to care for ourselves. And the brain, it's like a lightning strike to the brain that then causes some damage, which we've seen in various populations, our veterans, abuse survivors, and it doesn't have to, you know, PTSD can be caused for a wide variety of reasons. So knowing that we have some control over what's going on right now. So we need to be concerned about it, need to be on the radar, but we're having ways to be able to say that we are making progress. And if you hear, you know, some of the news has been very scary and overwhelming, but listen to some of the other things, like how many people are being discharged from the hospital, how many people are surviving and recovering, how many people are currently well, all the people that are staying home, the things that we've been doing like quarantine and self-distancing, social distancing has been working. So hopefully our brains are managing that information and we're still seeing the hope in there. When we talk about what's going on, and I don't know what's going on in your lives, right? There are people who are ill that are related to COVID-19 or other illnesses. Parents who are working on the front lines. Those are going to be some stressors that we're going to have to manage as we sort through this as a culture, as a society, as a community, as families, of being able to care for those who are caring so much and put in systems of care, of mental health and support once the crisis part is over. Because when the crisis is going on, We're still in adrenaline and cortisol, which is our stress hormones, which is driving that stress response, which gives us energy and direction and being able to keep going. When that's over, we're going to have to care for those people in our lives. And those who are struggling with mood are probably seeing an increase in symptoms. If you were struggling with depression before, it might be a little bit harder now, or a lot harder now. If you were struggling with anxiety, it's probably increased as well. All right, and so we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm just checking on my time. Okay. So what do our children need? We talked a little bit about what's going on in our world. We talked a little bit about physiology. Let's talk about what our children need a little bit. So Dan Siegel, another one of my heroes, you're going to see all of his resources. He has a phrase called name it to tame it. And when we think about that, let's think about it twice, right? So name it to tame it as parents, name it to tame it as children. So we're walking around in COVID-19 as parents, probably more activated than we usually are. Right? And we can get activated for any reason, right? We could watch a movie, we could, trip and fall, we get activated in our nervous system. Our nervous system kicks off at any time to be able to protect us. So being able as parents to say, okay, I feel like my heart rate is up. I feel stress. I'm grumbly at the kids. I'm short with them. I'm yelling at everybody. I just grounded the whole house, including the dog, right? So being able to check yourself and say, okay, I need a break. I need to take a breath here. I need to be able to pull out of this. I get to feel all of my feelings. I'm angry right now about this situation. I wish my child would listen to me on the first time I've said something, right? I wish this homework was easier to do with my child, right? Name it to tame it. Also, recognizing as parents that for those who are providing education right now, not only is it uncharted water, but now we're talking about maybe children with special needs and learning disabilities that, this is a new realm for you, like teaching math or science based on your child's learning needs, right? And so it's requiring a lot of your energy, both mental and physical. Being able to say and compassionately say to ourselves, I'm tired right now, and that's why I'm reacting. I need to be able to check myself and be able to manage my own mood so that I can help my kids do the same. Name it to tame it with our kids, helping them identify what's going on for them. Okay, I see we're having a meltdown about math. I am too. Let's take a break. We'll come back to it, but what's going on for you? What can we do to make this easier, right? Name it to tame it, having them understand what they're feeling so we can have a conversation about it. How do we manage our emotions? We're going to talk about emotional regulation in a little bit, but we can begin by having a routine of actions and practices that increase core things that we need anytime in life, but especially now. So connection, our sense of resiliency, and the ability to adapt to a new situation, which is really hard, right? So like when we talk about, being adapting, right? If I was to sneak into your house, I promise you I won't. If I was to sneak into your house tonight and steal your pillow, what would your coping skill be? Would you be like, oh, well, I can just sleep with another pillow? Or would you be like, oh my gosh, I can't sleep without my pillow. That's my pillow. I like the way it is. It's nice and fluffy. And this is how I sleep, right? So being able to manage transition and change, right? Okay. Some of the research that I was doing to be able to do this presentation when we were talking about connection in a time when we're not as connected as we're used to, and bringing in some of the research that's been going on about our social supports, that strong social connections actually add to our life expectancy. It improves our immune function. So it's a challenge that we're having right now because we're not as connected as we're used to being, hanging out with friends and going here, and our, family groups coming together, our church family coming in the same building and feeling that energy all together, right? So we're trying to muddle through all of this without some of those things that we're used to. Facilitate empowerment. So empowering pieces about knowing how your body works, as we talked about in terms of the stress response, but looking at the things we can control in our lives, whether that is being able to say, I can control whether I make scrambled eggs or fried eggs today. And sometimes we start small, and sometimes we go bigger, like I'm going to clean out that closet and I can control whether I get that done or not, right? I can control how I set my intention for teaching my child math today. That is something I control. I can't control their reaction, but I can control my intention of how I want to go about this today. And being able to have meaning making. So one of the things that when we talk about post-traumatic growth, so when I work with clients who have PTSD, we have to find a way to, what's on the other side of this? And so meaning making, perhaps in this moment of being together is, more family dinners than we're used to, or longer bedtime snuggles because we don't have to get up really early in the morning, or, silly moments that we're going to remember. Being able to have those meaning-making moments give us ways to handle how we're feeling and give us that piece of connection, empowerment, and resilience. Awe and hope. Okay. Awe, when we look at what awe is, it is that thing where we go, oh, wow. I have that in nature. So right now we're seeing the world come alive, which we're very grateful for. I feel like I'm noticing every little leaf that's coming out, and every flower. And I am in awe of watching the birds make their beautiful nests, right? And how hard they work for their family and going back and forth. And we've been going for walks and we see the crows chasing the hawks away from their nests and protecting what is theirs and their family, and seeing nature do its beautiful things to be able to. So nature is mine. Maybe it's music for you. Maybe it's dance. Maybe it's art. Finding ways for you and your children to experience awe in simple ways, right? There's all the museums went online right now to be able to support us. If you're animal people, I think the zoos have been doing some funny things. Find ways to find that awe. And hope. Hope, but authentic hope, right? So I have a high school senior, and it would be really wonderful if she could have all of her senior things. And I'm hopeful that that will happen, but I'm also recognizing that in this situation, it's a high probability that she won't. But I can find ways to be hopeful for other things. I can be hopeful that our communities are going to come up with solutions and possibilities of how we can address this new normal, and we can define it in different ways so that they can experience some of the things that they are so looking forward to. So we have to define awe and hope in ways that feel meaningful and authentic in this situation. Because if we didn't do it that way, then it doesn't produce the same feelings of helping us manage our emotions. Checking my time. Okay. All right. Another hero of mine, Brene Brown. If you haven't heard of her, check her out. She is, so she's a social worker. And so, like, for me to have a social worker who made it to Oprah and TED Talks, and she's like coveted by like all of the, she just came out with a new book called Dare to Lead. And she's like speaking for like Google and, Disney Pixar. Like, she's just my hero. And she's down to earth, real and authentic. And if you haven't checked out any of her information, I highly recommend it as part of your own personal growth. But her wholehearted parenting manifesto, I think, is so important for us in this moment in COVID and parenting in a pandemic. And I'm going to read it a little bit. Above all else, I want you to know that you are loved and lovable. You will learn this from my words, actions, the lessons on love in how I treat you and how I treat myself. I want you to engage with the world from a place of worthiness. You will learn that you're worthy of love, belonging, and joy every time you see me practice self-compassion and embrace my own imperfections. We will practice courage in our family by showing up, letting others be seen, and honoring vulnerability. We will share our stories of struggle and strength, and there'll be room for both in our house. We will teach you compassion by practicing compassion with ourselves first, then with each other. We will set and respect boundaries. We will honor hard work, hope, and perseverance, and rest and play will be family values as well as family practices. You will learn accountability and respect by watching me make mistakes and make amends, and by watching how I ask for what I need and talk about how I feel. I want you to feel joy, so together we will learn how to be vulnerable. When uncertainty and scarcity visit, you'll be able to draw from the spirit that is part of our everyday life. Together we will cry and face fear and grief. I will want to take away your pain, but instead I will sit with you and teach you how to feel it. We will laugh and sing and dance and create, and we will always have permission to be ourselves with each other. No matter what, you will always belong here. As you begin your wholehearted journey, the greatest gift that I can give you is to live and to love with my whole heart and to dare greatly. I will not teach or love or show you anything perfectly, but I will let you see me, and I will always hold sacred the gift of seeing you, truly, deeply seeing you. And I think she does that so beautifully. As parents, we're messy. We don't come to this with a manual. We don't know what we're doing. And parenting in a pandemic, we're flying by the seat of our pants even more than we ever did before. And so I look at this as that blueprint of being able to say that I need to be compassionate to how I'm doing things. One of the lines that I tell my kids is, when I do something that I'm not so proud of, I go, whew, okay, I would love for you to share that with your therapist one day. You should write that down because that's a winner. I missed the boat on that one. So please, and being able to make those amends, to be able to sit with our imperfections. Not easy. We want to know it all. We want to be right. We want to be able to do this right. We're charged with this gift of our children, and it's the ultimate pressure to do it right. So we put a lot of pressure. But if we get to show them feelings, then we get to teach them what it means to be human. And that is one of the greatest gifts we can give them. Okay, so let's look at our children by age group. So our young children. So we have to set the tone, right? They need our guidance. Our children throughout all of our ages need our guidance. I think my mother's on here. I still need her guidance, and I'm on approach to 50. So, but parents definitely set the tone. With small children, we need to give them ways to identify their feelings, right? So when they're at the dinner table and they're not eating broccoli, or they, flipped some chicken at a sibling, or whatever the case may be, or just have a meltdown, right? We can help them identify it. It looks like you're feeling sad right now. Do you need to play? Do you need a hug? Come here, let's take a break, right? Because when we're feeling crummy as human beings, the thing we need most is connection, right? But we tend to, as parents, we get overwhelmed and we're like, why is our kid doing this? And we get like a little freaked out. We just got to lean in, and it's okay. We just lean in and we help them identify what's going on for them at that moment. They might not know, right? Sometimes when we're in that place and we're totally overwhelmed, they're like, I don't know, right? That's okay. We just go, okay, I'm going to be here with you. We're going to be here together until it passes. Because teaching children that the feeling passes is another great gift, that we're not stuck with this crummy feeling forever. It's going to pass. We can help them by maintaining structure and routine. And I'm pretty sure you guys have been rocking that already, right? Because you're 6 weeks in, you're a pandemic parenting, awesome, extraordinaire parent. But thing to be able to remind you of is things that maybe you've been working on with your children. in terms of behaviors, whether it be sucking a thumb or getting rid of a binky or a blankie or whatever the case may be. If they're reaching for it now and they need it, that's okay. We all are reaching for comfort in this moment. It's overwhelming for all of us. And they're reading us. Remember mirror neurons, right? They're watching us and drinking in all that information. If you've been watching the news and you're feeling anxious or you're feeling angry and all of those feelings that are normal, that we're all feeling, their mirror neurons are picking up on it and they're responding based on how you are. I know that's a lot of pressure as parents, but that's part of the job we signed up for, unfortunately, right? Okay. Elmo belly breathing. There is a resource in here for young children. I'm going to put out the disclaimer in there. It is amazing. I highly recommend you watching it. The disclaimer is you will not stop singing it. It might be like that shark song that got stuck in my head for about 6 months. And if you have young children, you know what I'm talking about. So I highly recommend it. It's funny, it's silly, and a great way to be able to teach belly breathing, which we're going to talk about later. Elementary children. So they need ways to identify their feelings and explore ways to feel better. So when they're having a meltdown, being able to say like, okay, what's going on, buddy? I see something's happening here, right? You know, did you feel frustrated by that problem? You know, what can we do to help you in this moment, right? That structure of eating and sleep and exercise. So yes, Oreos are fabulous tools of parenting. They're wonderful. Just as long as we're managing the broccoli and the protein and all the other things that we need to add in, because I've been managing with Oreos and with broccoli. So we're all doing the best that we can in that moment, but helping everybody keep their routines. I think parents have felt a lot of anxiety about academics and getting things in and being able to respond to teachers. I can tell you that teachers are just as anxious as parents. They're trying to do the right thing, you're trying to do the right thing, and kids are trying to do it. And so everybody's doing the best that they can. And so we can take a little pressure off. I extended due dates for my graduate students. Everybody was feeling like everything was hard because everything is harder now, right? So even the thought process of doing a paper or taking a test feels harder than it did before. Check-ins and connection. Anytime you can be like, hey, so how was your day? How was math? How was that class? Let's read a book together. Do you want to snuggle and watch a movie? Do you want to play a game? Anytime we can kind of connect is a great opportunity to be able to kind of talk about feelings, right? And we kind of slide them in, and I'm going to show you a little bit in just a minute about some of the resources that I have for you to maybe to add to your library. And the doing the best that we can motto. And I think that if anybody's heard of the 4 agreements, the last one is always do your best. And years ago when I was teaching at doing a presentation for high school seniors, somebody raised their hand and they were like, always do your best? That feels like so much pressure. Like I have to do my best every time I brush my teeth and take a test. And, you know, and I was like, okay, nope. Always do our best means that maybe our best right now is to take a nap. Maybe our best right now means I need to call a friend and talk this out. So what doing our best means, our best in this moment, in a pandemic, under all these circumstances, with managing our own mood and helping our children manage theirs. Okay. Middle school and teens. So our teens and tweens, some of you are probably reporting that they are fighting you to come down to do their work at the kitchen table, or they want to stay in their room. Some are sleeping like eons and eons, and you keep checking, you know, and trying to feed them and water them and shower them, right? So they need that balance of connection and space. Are they ever going to be like, oh, mommy, daddy, I would love to connect with you right now? No, there's going to be maybe some sort of snarky, wonderful comment that you have to go, here's an opportunity, right? And that's where your nervous system being regulated helps you, because you're able to kind of see what's going on for them. And knowing them and being the experts of your children at this point, you'll be able to see when they need a little space, and you get to check in for that, to be able to say, hey, is this a time where you need to be like alone? I'm totally willing to honor that. Or, do you want to come with me and let's go for a walk? Or do you want to help me bathe the dog or something, right? Like, we're getting creative with our activities of fun at home, right? But doing some things like maybe that happy playlist. So, maybe we're all making dinner together. Everybody gets to pick a song. So in terms of middle school and teenagers, being able to empower them that they get to pick a song that we're all grooving and dancing to, and everybody feels accepted in this moment. And we can all giggle at each other's musical choices because everybody's different. But if we think about wholehearted parenting, all are welcome. We all get to show up and be seen for whatever our tastes are, right? Being outside together, right? Telling our tween and teen the importance of vitamin D and how that helps our mood, and you got to air out, my friend, right? And encouraging them to do so. So not taking moods personally, that's really hard. I think we all struggle with that, right? We want our kids to think we're the greatest thing since sliced bread 100% of the time without deviation, right? We're not, because we're perfectly imperfect human beings, and we're going to mess up. We're going to be rude. We're going to be forgetful. We're going to miss the boat with our children in some way, shape, or form. Or they're just having a bad day, or something was going on with them, or they've been looking at us for 6 weeks now without other people in their lives, and they are just done, right? And that's okay too, right? So not taking it personally, but just being able to check in, like, hey, I see you need your space, not a problem, but how about at 6 o'clock we do blah, blah, blah together, right? And kind of having that balance. One of the things that I do know in terms of your community, because my community also suffered it. So in Flemington, we had a significant amount of loss of students by suicide recently. I am aware that that's also happened in Bucks County. And so our teens are grieving. They're grieving the situations that have been going on and struggling maybe with mental health, as many teens do. And the social needs that teens have of connecting with peers. There was, a research study that talked about how important our peer relationships are for development, because we're tuning our parents out as appropriately and as part of a developmental task. But our peers give us rich information for our growth and our awareness about ourselves, sometimes very painfully and sometimes in beautiful ways. But our teens sometimes need help with creating connections. Some were struggling in school to have friendship groups before, and now with the loss of lunch or recess or after school activities or sports, they're not having the connections that maybe they leaned on. So being able to help them create connections without sounding too parental, if you understand what I mean by that, like, let's get some connections for you. It's like, no, let's find ways of like how we can connect, or can we put together a Zoom meeting, or can we, finding ways that we can be safe and we can honor our children's needs to be social. So managing those things that are going on for our teens, which are a whole host of things in terms of their mental health. All right, emotional regulation. All right, I'm doing good. So when I teach clients about emotional regulation and being able to pull out of a stress response, these are things that you can do yourself, and you can teach your kids to do it, right? And there'll be different ways in terms of ages, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So breathing. Breathing is one of the core aspects. When we breathe in a certain way, it mimics sleep. And when it mimics sleep, it turns off the adrenaline and cortisol from our brain. And so therefore, we're not stressed. Now, if we start breathing fast again, we turn it right back on. That's another story. But breathing, deep belly breathing, right? There are lots of different ways to be able to do some deep breathing. I've attached some in the resources for you to be able to look at. Wonderful YouTube resources that you can Google yourself. But breathing, because we're mimicking sleep. Stress muscles. So from a stress response, we tend to do a certain position. It's a biological evolutionary stress response. And I'm going to see if I can get up and do it. So see this? Okay. So we tense everything up. So when we're tense, we scrunch our face, right? We tend to clench our jaw, our muscles in our hands clench, and we pull in our abdominal muscles, because when we're running or fighting, this is the position that we're in, and we pull in our abdominal muscles to protect our internal organs with running or fighting. So when we're talking about being able to pull out of a stress response, we have to be able to relax those muscles. So you're kind of going through your body and doing a body scan of relaxing, shoulders down, back, think of an open heart, flexing your hands open, and thinking of a soft belly, right? That belly that we don't care about when we're falling asleep, right? No one can see it anyway. It's that soft belly that just hangs out. We don't want to tense our belly when we're trying to relax. We're making it all hang out. So that's one. So breathing, stress muscles, because the thing is that if I was to tell you, you just need to calm down, Katie, right? Just calm down. I would punch you, right? Because my thing might be, I'm going to fight, right? Because it doesn't make sense. Remember, in a stress response, telling somebody to calm down does not make sense. Communication skills go offline, problem solving skills offline. So we go in through the body and then the brain catches up. That's why we have to do emotional regulation this way. In through the body and the brain catches up. Breathing, stress muscles. Then 5 senses. Our sensory data gives us information every second of every day. And it's an incredible tool for survival, as well as Thanksgiving dinner for me, because my 5 senses come totally online for Thanksgiving dinner of all the cool things that are going on. But anyway, 5 senses. You look around the room and you name 5 things that you see. You can't use peripheral vision. It doesn't count. You have to physically look at the item and say, I see a door. I see a window. Right? And so you're taking inventory and you're scanning the room. Then you're listening to what you hear. You're taking in inventory of what you smell, what you taste. And sometimes you taste like nothing but good old fashioned spit. That's okay. You're still tasting you and what your spit tastes like, right? Things that you touch, right? Things that you hear, smell, taste, touch. Okay. So when you do that inventory, if you have scanned your environment and there's not a fire in the room, there's not a bear, there's not a growling coyote, and you get to go, okay, in this moment, I'm safe, I'm okay. And it's something that grounds you in this moment. We tend to, as human beings, want to jump to the past, run to the future. And so by doing 5 senses, it brings you back into the moment that we're living and gives you the ability to identify if you're okay in this moment. Okay. Self-compassion. My friends, as parents, I think this is the area where we could really grow. I received I'm looking at it, it's a Pocket Gratitude book, not too long. I think I got it for Christmas. And I was flipping through it and looking for different ideas. And one of them was thanking yourself for difficult tasks. And I was like, what? That sounds a little crazy or whatever. And so I read it and I was like, all right, we're going to give it a try. And so cleaning the bathroom is not my favorite task whatsoever. But, we engage in things that we don't want to do or don't like to do on a regular basis. So I cleaned the bathroom. I set my intention. I cleaned the bathroom with the best of my ability. And I looked around and I took inventory and I went, hey, good for you. You did it. You did it in a short amount of time. It's nice and shiny. It's nice and clean, and way to go. And, I laughed at the activity, which was good. Humor is another good thing. But it was also another moment of acknowledging what we're doing that feels really hard right now. You have been rising to the occasion for the past 6 weeks, being creative, incredible parents, right? Trying to find ways to keep your household going in various ways with financial stress or emotional stress, or just all the things that we're dealing with. Give yourself credit for everything that you have done. You have moved mountains. You're doing things that none of us were prepared to do, and you're doing it. And that's really important. Self-care on steroids. So if you have small children who are possibly sleeping in the bed with you now, or if you have a cat, in my case, who is insisting on sleeping on us and making all kinds of horrible noises, you have to increase your self-care, which looks like getting a good amount of sleep, you're eating. And yes, I realize that we are 24/7 parenting right now, right? There is no kind of me time or break as maybe there was before. Being able to kind of have those few moments, whether it's 30 seconds of breathing throughout the day. P.S. And that breathing stress muscles and 5 senses. If you only do that in crisis, you're going to call me up and you're going to go, Katie, that didn't work. And you're going to be annoyed with me. You have to do that. What I tell my clients, like 800 times a day, not too many times, right? It literally takes less than 5 minutes for you to be able to do that. And so for you to be able to engage in that when you're doing math, when you're trying to get multiple people in the bathtub, right? If you're trying to shower yourself, right? So in the shower, hopefully you get a break there. Sometimes we don't. I can remember years ago, there was like a baby carrier in the floor and I was singing Old MacDonald while I'm in the shower, right? But do those moments of being able to kind of breathe in, the shower is this sensory, bonanza of the things that we smell, no tasting in there, folks, but the things that we hear and the water on us, relaxing our body and all of those things. A shower can be a few minutes of self-care on steroids if you engage in it. If you're John Kabat-Zinn, who's a mindfulness teacher, says, look around the shower and see who else is in there. If other people are in there, you're in trouble, right? So in other words, like the stories that we tell ourselves and the things that are going on in our mind, try and shut it down and be really mindful in that moment. And that will help regulate your nervous system. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, so I'm going to end here because I'm probably running over now. Nope. With one of my favorite poems. It's by Rumi, who is I think he's a 13th century poet. I can't remember. It was just a really long time ago. Let's just put it that way. But I'll read it to you and explain. The guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So all of our feelings that we're feeling right now, Rumi tells us, go ahead and feel them. Feel them. There's no other way around it, because we either feel all of our feelings or we feel none of them. And to have wholehearted parenting, to be fully alive, to be fully engaged with our life, even if it's messy right now, means we have to be present with our feelings and help our children be present with our feelings. Okay, so the last little bit, I have a ton of resources. Oh, wait. So the Elmo's Dad on Parenting During COVID, that is everybody's homework assignment. I don't care if you have a toddler or if you have a college-bound student. I would like you to watch that as your homework assignment, okay? And then tons of books, right? So one of my favorites, Today I Feel Silly and Other Moods That Make My Day, all of the things that bring in feeling awareness. Mindful Monkey, Happy Panda, Moody Cow Meditates, right? Tons and tons of books that you can order. Amazon is still delivering them because I got some new ones recently. Being able to help our children identify what is going on for them is really critical. It also provides opportunities to have conversations. Oh, let's be mindful like the monkey, right? Or let's do this. If you are a family that has been experiencing loss, there I put two grief books on here to explain that to children. If you need more, you can feel free to reach out to me in any way, shape, or form. There are resources for teens, and then more things for you. And that is my presentation. So I'm going to stop the screen. So thank you so much.
Katie, we want to thank you so much for being here tonight. That was just a wonderful presentation, and I know it will help and bless so many of us. And I think all of us could really very much relate to those stories and those questions of what's happening now, right now in the world. And so we thank you for that. Folks, we will make this PowerPoint available so you can see those resources. The video will be up on YouTube. So we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight. And Katie, again, just thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
With that, I'm going to close us in prayer. God, we thank you so much for wisdom, the wisdom that comes from being present in the moment, from hearing still small voices that speak to us, reassuring us that we are loved and that we are perfectly imperfect. We thank you for that, oh God. Bless us as we go from this space, as we continue to navigate these difficult waters as parents. Help us to be reminded that we are not alone, that we have friends and family and resources that are available. Amen. Guys, thank you so much for being here, and have a great night.